Damn, that is a good song. Hey guys, welcome to another session of Recessional of the Red Dragons. Last time, the Red Dragon Hunters, as they were now called, they settled in Evil City waiting for the Pokemon trainers to arrive, and they actually reunited with Attain, along with her family. Not to mention, they also met an unlikely ally who was willing to provide them with logistics for the upcoming war. That's right, it's Victoria Terpsichore, aka the bounty hunter, actually the intergalactic trucker that doesn't favor bounty hunters, but ever since she met Spike, she began to warm up to them. So she was more than willing and able to provide them the logistics and the supplies that they need. While also the guys actually hung out in Flossississy Ranch for the final hours. So now it's war time. Alright, Chapter 8, The Eve of Destruction. By the crack of dawn, both X and Zero awakened within their capsules at the heart of the Maverick Hunter base. They walked out amongst the steam emitting from them and processed the big day. An alarm and some distant red lights were going off as the blue bomber declared, "This is it, Zero. Prepare for war." Back at the Flossissy Ranch, the Pokemon, the trainers, and the bounty hunters were assembling their new suits of armor, all except Jet, Edward, Ian, McIntyre, and Mr. Appledelhi. Apparently, they had actually decided on a place to stay during the expedition to Olympus Mons and trek through enemy lines at Valles Marineris. Because the Heavy Metal Queen was a long spacecraft that could house several people, the trainers decided unanimously they should use it as they approached Mars, although they were kind of nervous since they never entered outer space before. They drew out their flying types once more, and they hoped that Zeros and Ein would never share ship with one another. Because the process was experimental and risky if they should enter the atmosphere and exposed to no gravity nor oxygen, they might not be able to use reinforcements. They've wanted to use other Pokemon as well as other allies from Earth if they could, but it can only be a one-way voyage. With some heartfelt farewells, they flew back to Able City. Otherwise, the cast would be too much to work with. The Zip Crafts in the shuttle followed them, and Trudy, due to her restlessness, slept in the cockpit of the old Hammerhead during the flight. She then abruptly woke up and heaved a little. "What's wrong, Trudy?" I just had another nightmare. It's Spike. He was holding his Jericho wearing that evil sneer. He fired. The nozzle was smoking. I think it took place in a dark graveyard since I saw some big tombstones. He shot me, Jet. Truly. She wiped some of the sweat away as well as wiped her baggy eyes. I have to get that music box. I dreamt about this before. It was playing the soothing melody, and I think it has to do with Julia. What are you saying? I think I know a way to bring Spike back. Jet, are you there? Yes, Zero. What is it? We're prepared to approach Mars in Valles Marineris. Just awaiting for your arrival. Also, I need to reveal something that might shock all of you. Go ahead. As if we haven't heard enough blasphemy already. Trudy scorned a little at his stern words of doubt and denial. The red robot stated that he too had a nightmare, the same one that Trudy had since day one. He did see Master Yakushimo insert blood into Spike after drawing it from Vicious. He then theorized that what he said was true, that when Spike awakened, Yakushimo mentioned they shared the same blood. He believed that to be vital since humans go through blood transfusions sharing the same type, excepting type O since it was considered to be universal. Zero thought that how Yakushimo returns his fallen to the battlefield all share Spike's and Vicious's blood. The common link was there, just enhanced with drugs and sorcery. Those that didn't share the link probably had their vessels obliterated completely, like a cremation. He concluded as long as they share the same blood type as Spike and Vicious does, and because they're the most valuable members of the syndicate, they could be reanimated numerous times and remain as bloodthirsty tools permanently. This was definitely a striking theory Zero had made, though it wasn't too surprising. There was a stunned silence that seemed to stretch on until the ships landed at their final destination on Earth. Time was definitely of the essence, and Laughing Bull's prophecy involving the super red giant and the supernova were ringing in the troubled hunters' minds. I hope we're not too late. Wow! We go to Mars! Edward could barely contain her excitement after she was strapped into a seat within the shuttle's cockpit. Ein was also secure, along with McIntyre and Mr. Appledeli within separate chairs. The only one that was empty was the captain's seat, which was available to Zero. X remained with Jet and the Hammerhead, Trudy was inside the Red Tail with Faye, while the trainers and Pokemon were comfortable within the Heavy Metal Queen. There was plenty of wiggle room for them to roam, even for the larger creatures. It was T-minus 3 minutes as the Reploids made close observations from inside the base and out. The partly cloudy skies were ideal for the launch. One of them announced the countdown over the loudspeaker. T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7. Although I wish I could use a certain song, but I don't want to take risks. The landing pad opened, allowing the spacecraft as long as 3 football fields to merge, while the other transports stood by on the separating sections of pavement. The long truck train was lifted by a platform from about 30 feet below. The 3 other ships were being tilted back, even facing the cerulean sky, as the sun shined down on them from an adjacent angle. Here we go! The first to blast off was the Hammerhead as it ignited its thrusters and opened its wings. The Reploids remained a sharp eye on it to make sure it wouldn't be shot down by any radicals if they dared to intrude here, or if any oncoming meteor shower would cause any damage. We have a go for the Hammerhead. It's go time! About a minute later, the Red Tail was next, repeating the process. Hold on to your asses! Meow! Lastly, it was the elongated Heavy Metal Queen. However, the engine roared like a normal truck would, then started to ascend and cruise away much like a tank engine. Just several miles apart, they each made it toward the Earth's hyperspace gate. To the trainers and Pokemon, they grew both fascinated and scared at the sight and leaving the planet. Edward seemed to grow more ecstatic, while the rest just sat idly, guiding their own vessels. Then, everyone observed a flash of white light. There was a trippy golden and black scenery as the crafts gained speed, until they reached the end of the warp tunnel while they approached the light. Gravity remained intense until the ships immersed into the weightless, bleak, and starry frontier. Each one of the passengers calmed themselves, including the startled Pokemon. The star cruisers looked as if they were a group of comets drifting aimlessly toward a certain destination. They traveled through massive metal rings before they entered into the endless void. The red dragon hunters were on their way to the roaring red planet, only several light years ahead. Breaking the odd silence, Jack suggested, "All right, space cowboys, cowgirls. We must stay sharp at all times for any radicals. I know it seems unorthodox, but we should use the dark warp gate in order to avoid detection. I feel it's far too risky to use a normal warp gate, or enter Mars's atmosphere manually. Remember, the Syndicate is axe crazy, not stupid." "I think I should go in later than you guys. I should provide logistics and meet up with the other truckers, just for safety reasons, and let 'em know I'm here." "Good. Just don't forget about us when we head toward Olympus Mons, you hear?" "Loud and clear, Black Dog." "We should keep an eye out for the swordfish, too. Spike did force you guys into exile and threatened to shoot you down if he saw us." That made everyone shiver, even Trudy. It was indeed the same one that she kept feeling whenever she sensed Vicious was near, or the erratic Spike. We can't worry about that, X. Let's prepare ourselves and get moving. There was a jingle coming from the Hammerhead's dashboard. Jet was still open to all channels, picked up the signal and put it on speaker. It was Donnelly. Jet, what took you so long? I couldn't contact you on the Bebop. Please tell me what happened. The Bebop was destroyed by Spike's swordfish during a dogfight. But luckily we were saved by two fellow maverick hunters named X and Zero. His close comrade cried out to Jet that Zero's theory has been justified. He said that if anyone falls during the fight, the Red Dragons are willing to drag away anyone against their will and turn them into deadly alliances. Anyone from the Syndicate or the opposing forces would be taken not as prisoners, but have their minds warped into bloodborne killers. If Yakushimo and his men are put away early enough, they could rule off Mars and soon the entire galaxy. With this method of victory, they'll be unstoppable. We're screwed! I thought there was only an uprising when it comes to mavericks. It looks as though it is the same to humans. Soon enough, the red planet was standing out like a blood ruby in space. Mons, we go to mountain, kill the dragons! Spiky down there! She pointed yonder, and Ein's ears perked up at the sight of the planet and Eddie's words. Yes, we should find a secure place here. I know there is no safe haven with the war going on, but we should find somewhere to set up shop. Maybe I suggest Annie's store? I reckon that's not a bad idea. Let's go. You'll meet us at Vallis Marineris, I trust? Of course. I'll be there ASAP. I just need to drop off some first aid, food, artillery, and the like to my fellow truckers. I'll meet you all there. Be careful. They didn't see, but the leading trucker gave a thumbs up before soaring off. Meanwhile, a nearby zipcraft was watching over them enter Mars's dark warp gate. It was supposed to be a discreet entrance, but a certain someone saw them approach into enemy territory. Spike gave the signal to Master Yakushimo. They have returned, and this time they are not alone. A trucker is with them. His associates were... errors. Hold on a sec. His associates were some surprised, though ravenous looks. The war has begun with the ISSP, and they're provided with support. Still, these fleas must be eliminated. Spike, find them, and destroy them. Is it time? Yes. We let these earthlings and old dogs wait enough. At last! I didn't mean to repeat that thing. He steered his swordfish toward the normal warp gate as he entered Mars. Prepare for battle. He riled up his troops who were eager as they were to strike their opponents down. By the time they entered Tharsis, the sky was already a mixture of dark gray and cinnabar. Faye looked down from a red tail and recognized a familiar Ferrari parked in the lot of a convenience store of sorts. Julia! She temporarily had a flashback on how she saved her from the pursuing dragons, then lost her forever. That certainly got Trudy's attention. What is it, Faye? That car was Julia's. I think she was unable to retrieve it after she died. I saw it once when I saved her as she was being chased by the red dragons. I'm surprised it hasn't been impounded or destroyed. I believe we should stop here. The red dragons would never suspect us here since this place has seen better days. Or perhaps Spike. Zero looked at her with worry. Ships landed, and as they all marched in with Eddie being as silent as she could, Jet was right since the entire place looked abandoned. Bullet holes were abundant, broken furniture were tossed asunder. There were a few shattered windows, and luckily for the hunters, there were various goods, but their main assets were the scarce assortments of weaponry, ammo, and some food located throughout. I was also astonished the large fridge was still operating despite all the damage, but supplies were limited since some of the assassins made it there first and took most of them away. Here it is. This place, here it is. This place looks like it hadn't been used in years. To Trudy, this reminded her of an abandoned strip mall that used to have a massive vacant lot with a bowling alley and a bar next door, along with a karate dojo and also a Chinese restaurant. Unfortunately, the childhood memories were destroyed due to its condition. The fact that each place went out of business and later was bulldozed. Edward wasted no time setting up her gizmos. The rest of the group gathered their refreshments and repertoire of ammunition and firearms. The lights never worked, but it was advantageous since they needed to remain discreet. I need to go to that antique store so I can get that music box. I hope he has it. I'll take you there. Be careful, you two. He headed out to the Red Tail and lifted off to the pit stop she mentioned. It was a short flight within the city, and recognizing the settlement, the antique store had also been demolished. What the hell? According to the distraught owner, it turned out the Red Dragons had bombed the place. Trudy asked if he had an old music box, and there was one on a shelf he was saving for a customer named Julia. Their eyes opened wide at the aforementioned name. She was one of the regulars, but she stopped here rarely since she was always on the run. It was the only surviving product he had. He offered it to Trudy with no charge. He'd never forget how sweet she was when they first met, as Trudy, as an Earthling, still appreciated obsolete technology that included the VHS, or rather beta tapes, while Spike and Jet were messing around. It was thanks to her and the clerk alone that restored Faye's hidden memories. After the two promised to restore his business after the war, they left. They tried to persuade him to evacuate to Earth, but he only acted on the offer. Instead, grabbed a nearby shotgun and committed suicide. He had nowhere else to go. He couldn't leave Mars under their scrutiny since he'd be shot dead. As they continued assembling, Ein eventually leapt beside Edward on an old sofa they were occupying. The little dog then sniffed the air. Ein? He loaded the Glock. He was about to point it through a window, but he hesitated as he heard foot landings scuffling inside. From his peripheral vision, he spotted someone in a red metallic mask. Noticed he was spotted, the figure hid away and ran. Ein! Ein! Edward tried to calm the pooch, but to no avail. Ein, what is it, boy? He started to fix on something and began to lunge as he let out a more menacing yelp. Edward held him back in her long, strong arms. Ein, what's with you? Cut it out, boy! He's blowing our cover. I think someone's out there. An intruder. X! Zero! Maverick hunters ran to opposing corners. Zero looked out the adjacent window. We got movement! 3 o'clock. He's on the rooftops. Jet drew out his Welther P99, was on the prowl following the shadowed man who was leaping from rooftop to rooftop. He also kept rolling on them after he landed. On foot, Jet still kept at it. He was surprised he could keep up with only a few miles away from the suspect. He didn't even notice a chirpy voice calling him from some alleys away. Back at the store, the room felt deathly silent again, despite Ein's whimpering and Edward reassuring the troubled mutt. Zero and X regrouped. They were so desperate to help Jet chase down the intruder. The former thought it was who he thought it was. If Spike ever finds us here, I would be more than happy to kick his ass. It was such a huge relief that the old cementer could have his own in a fight, and he exclaimed that he stood up against Spike with minimal effort and bested him, which was no exaggeration. Eventually, Jet got the wind knocked out of him for running too long. He lost the mysterious figure, but he wasn't about to give up on searching for the perp. One thing that was well known about him was he never gave up once he had a criminal in his sights. Hence the attained nicknames Black Dog and Hammerhead. His first guess was the graveyard he wound up. It was a puddle that seemed to never evaporate as a wilted dark rose settled in its eternal resting place. Despite the drizzle, he went into the deep field, his senses getting sharper since he figured it'd be a good place for a radical to hide, kill, and bury his victims. He was immediately caught off guard when he heard a click cornering him by signature golden pistol drawn. So much for those primitive strikes. You! What the hell are you doing in a place like this? Making your own grave, Jet. What else would I be doing here? He figured that Spike of all people would be here. He once heard him mention Julia in a place like this as a hiding spot. Despite his immense fear, he just let out a chuckle when he challenged. Heh! Is that it? Thinking the syndicate would cause a setup and beat me, did they? You just couldn't get enough of their fetish for violence, can you, Spike? Can the bullshit, Jet. I am here to make you have a taste with God. Then his voice lowered as he sneered straight at him, pointing out the Jericho. Master Yakushima would be pleased. Now kiss the earth. Jet could have sworn Spike really looked like a dog with rabies with his bloodshot, narrow eyes, his mouth nearly drooling with foam as he grinded his fangs, just embracing his kill. Stupid fuck. Gone and gotten yourself brainwashed. Well, you asked for it, you good for nothing punk! Jet! Someone immediately got in the center of the brawl. Her arms were spread out and she was nearly out of breath, feeling as though her hard beating heart leapt to her throat. Trudy! Wait! Please! Just wait! Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I've known Spike's cheap tricks of the trade. I can handle him effortlessly on my own. You hang back and keep safe and win this war. No, I can't. There's something I must do here. He can remember. I know he will. Please, just give me a little time. Sure. They heard Spike's Glock click again. Then I will kill you both! Spike! Listen to this! He immediately took out a tiny music box from his striped pants pocket. You have to remember this! Played the same jingle as it did in her previous dreams, handle winding round and round. Spike had the urge to mangle them, leave them for dead. But that song was slowly holding him back. He was gradually losing his fighting instinct as some memories began to resurface, mostly those of Julia, hearing that song from a jazz group of sorts. Trudy eventually set it down on the dry turf in between Spike and Jet. They continued to listen. Spike's face became more vacant. Sweat was pouring out. His rampant breathing began to cease little by little as the melody kept on playing. Then he started to lower his arm very slowly and actually walked toward the box. With weak, flimsy fingers, he then picked it up and held it in his palm, like a child that was reunited with a lost, cherished toy. Julia. Bang! Gunshot ran out and hit Trudy dead center. No! Jet scrambled toward her as she fell back. The box nearly stopped and Spike looked up in stunned silence. Jet kept begging her as he shook her body. Hey! Hey! Stay with us! He observed her for a shot wound, but surprisingly there was none. Not even a scratch. The only sign of damage he saw was a bullet hole through Trudy's black satin t-shirt. There was no bleeding on her upper chest. Then it dawned on him. The bullet must have ricocheted from her star pendant Laughing Bull gave her earlier, which he actually saw the glimmer. Trudy, you're not dead. There was no response from her. Later realized she had just fainted. Spike! Male shout out from behind. He emerged from hiding behind a nearby tombstone. You got to finish them. Come on, what are you waiting for? Get them! Jet was still too stunned to confront the sniper, and Spike hesitated. He momentarily drew out his Jericho. With some shaky hands, he aimed the trigger toward the distraught duo. The hatred in him boiled like Vicious's blood coursing through his veins, making his heart gallop. He then pressed the trigger. Yet there was no fire. It was just a tick as if the cartridge was empty. Maybe the safety was on and he didn't know it. He tried a few more times with the same result. Then I'll have to do it myself. Sniper aimed his own rifle, but Spike retaliated with a shot of his own. However, not without a recoil. He was stuck in the leg. Spike attempted to keep himself up. His grip and weight proved to be too much. Spike! Immediately turned him over. The only mark in his leg was a tiny hole from a black dart, no less. It was actually from a different rifle the sniper possessed. Quickly he looked over him. Spike, what's happened? Jet. His eyes became clearer. His memory was coming back to him, extinguishing more of his hostility in his vitals. He grew more pale and his body was tremoring, especially his hands. Look, after Trudy and Faye, the fate of Mars and the universe depends on you. Red Dragons have declared war. It's only a dart that inflicts a fate like death. You must fight them now. His body became limp as he sputtered and his eyes lowered. Good luck, old-timer. I'm sorry. I can't. His eyes finally closed completely. Don't worry, Spike. When you wake up, all of this will be over. You won't have to live through this nightmare any longer. I promise you that. Trudy! We dead? No, we're alive. Hugged each other tightly, grateful they're still kicking. But I was shot. It wasn't Spike. No, it wasn't. It was just another sniper from the Syndicate. You weren't killed since the bullet ricocheted from your pendant. She looked down and noticed the tiny hole. She looked up, she saw lifeless Spike lying there. Spike! 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 Still unconscious. He was struck by a dart specifically made by the Syndicate. He's assured he won't be a threat as long as he's knocked out. Back at the store, Faye returned safely with her red tail and wouldn't stop wondering what happened to Jet or Trudy. Just then the front door was kicked open. They both carried Spike's limp body in over the shoulders. The elders helped him lay him down on the couch. X and Zero went by his side and used their visors for diagnostic scanning. According to the input, they described that his vitals are slow and faint. His skin is pale and clammy like someone who'd been sleeping for days or weeks. They couldn't see his brown irises, though they were surprised that one was organic while the other was mechanical. Jet said it was due to an accident while serving the Syndicate before he decided on bounty hunting. Faye added in that one sees the past, while the other sees the present. Still, they never saw any compound like this in Spike's molecular makeup. Trudy, X-Zero, and Faye became anxious on fighting off the Red Dragons, though Jet thought it'd be wise to wait for Vicky arriving with the trainers. They saw the door open suddenly. They drew out their weapons thinking it'd be a radical. It was such a relief they saw Mary and her cousins. Are you all right? Yes. That Vicky would be providing logistics on the battlefield along with the other truckers. We had decided to approach the situation on foot so we'd stay discreet. Or rather, fly there. We'll use our Pokemon to give us some leeway. You know, deceiving the enemy so we could sneak through. It's hard to explain, but we could use them to alter the weather and create illusions so the enemy won't sneak up on us. All we gotta do is fly over the canyon, land near Olympus Mons, and infiltrate the base. Sounds like you guys got it all figured out. Everyone, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to stay behind. What? Why? Due to liability reasons, Jet decided to stay at the store for cover along with Edward, Ian, McIntyre, and Mr. Appledilly. Though he volunteered to stay as backup during the conflict, and contact them whenever they needed for strategy or support. The elders and the hacker agreed unanimously without a single trace of objection. That means you too, Ian. That means you too, Ian. Leech, keep an eye on Spike and watch out for any radicals. I'm not cut out for this. I understand. I believe it's from your advanced stage. Actually, that was a mistake. Besides, in your condition, I doubted you'd be willing to immerse yourself in a war zone. Don't worry, we'll look out for our comrades for you. That's what us maverick hunters do, after all. Never forget the time Zero gave him a lecture on what their function was: to serve and protect humans and defend those that are incapable of doing so. Now go kick some red dragon tail. We got your back. Thanks. Sure you don't want to go with us? I hope if you guys look hard enough, Vicky would have your back. They all marched out one by one. Then Faye looked at Spike. Jet, please take care of him. We will, Faye. Hurry back. Good luck. They'll need it. Godspeed to all of you. But they so young. They kids like me. They were kids, Edward. Not anymore. They may look young, but they have great potential. Besides, I trust X and Zero to look after them. It's up to them now. But why can't we fight? I don't think you are capable of combat, Eddie. And neither are we. Age can change us all. It's youth, unity, and strength that can get them through. Indeed it does. May the stars guide them. He looked at the unconscious Spike, hoping things wouldn't take a turn for the worse. Yeah, I know, the title's a ripoff from that song. I've been waiting for several years to write this, especially about what happens to Spike, as well as the space launch, which by the way would include the awesome David Bowie classic. I wish. Oh, about the strip mall Trudy related to, I can as well. The bowling alley was the cream of the crop from my childhood. Nowadays it's all gone. So the war's beginning, and there were several references I used. One was Dissidia Duodecim, a little of Avatar, Good Morning Vietnam, Bardock, Reboot, Romeo and Juliet, and Armageddon. And I almost forgot, is it just me, or does Vicious remind you of Seth Roth? He also reminds me of Duragon. Heck, the similarities are striking. They have similar hair, voices, they rebel against their organizations, they're evil, they tend to send shivers down my spine, they're very intimidating and want nothing more than destruction, revenge, and dominance, and they wield a mass immune. Oh, except Oregon. In addition, the Raven reminds me of Sephiroth's look as the one-winged angel, and they both connect as a fallen angel in a way as well. And the protagonist has an intense rivalry with each other, except in love triangle. I always hear One-Winged Angel play in my ears whenever he makes an appearance. Perhaps they're an inspiration? Yeesh! Being this is a warfic, it's going to take quite a while to put all the scenes and details together. So, sit tight for the battle. Until then, this is the Ecron Writer signing off. So stay tuned, Space Cowboys and Space Cowgirls.